Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2000 action Western comedy that is Shanghai Noon. Now, Shanghai Noon is one of those films that when it came out, it was a surprise hit, did pretty well financially, had a fair amount of fans, even critics gave it some good marks. And it's a movie that I definitely enjoyed. Haven't seen it like a ton of times, like other people who are really big fans of this film, but I did see it a handful of times over the years. I think in large part because one of my relatives was a big fan of it. So that was a film that was definitely on fairly constant rotation. Whenever I would go around to visit them, and I revisited the film myself recently, and I think it still holds up really well. It was a really enjoyable, fun blend of different genres, and Jackie and Owen are a really good pair. And I would say, yeah, this is definitely one of the better Jackie Chan films that he did for the U.S. market. It's right up there with Rush Hour to me. Like, I really liked this one. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I want to give a special shout out to Bronson for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Shanghai Noon is directed by Tom Dey, and this was his first film. He had only directed a music video and like a couple episodes of the TV show The Hunger before this, and you could not tell. I was really impressed by the direction for this film. The action sequences, the martial arts fights were all shot in ways that were really quite excellent, and it didn't look like it was the effort of somebody who was just doing this for the first time. There's some gorgeous, breathtaking vistas in this film, and the way that they're shot is just beautiful to look at. And it's a movie that has a very comic book kind of energy to it, and that's maintained consistently throughout with the visual style. And I do think that there was a fair amount of ambition and genuine fun when it comes to the direction for Shanghai Noon. The director really decided to take the reins and create something that was all his own, and put his own stamp on it. And in the process, really created a genuine career for him, because he would go on to have a decent career in the industry after this. Maybe not directing something that was on the same level of Shanghai Noon, but still had a successful enough career that he was still directing films all the way into the 2020s. So, yeah, I felt the direction was dynamic. It was strong. It had a good amount of kick and flair to it. I would say that a big part of why this film succeeds, and why it still has so many fans to this day, I think, is in large part to Day's direction, who did a damn good job directing it. I also feel that the screenplay is another reason why this film works as well as it does, by Alfred Goh and Miles Millar. I think the two of them did a terrific job for the most part with this screenplay. It really is a difficult script if you think about it, because it's not only just a buddy movie, it's also a martial arts film, a western film, and a comedy. So you have to take all three of those genres and then provide a combination of all three that's not only satisfying, but actually appears to be fitting. And I think that the two writers managed to do that. And It definitely helps too that the plot is compelling in its own right. It's a kind of a typical, almost cliched plot line though about rescuing a princess, but the way that it's set up, the way that the writers structure that familiar plot line still makes it, in my opinion, a compelling story. And I think in large part you really do connect with Sean Wang. You feel for him, you sympathize with him, and you root for him to save the princess and find a way to regain his honor, so to speak. And along the way, you also root for Roy and for his redemption because he starts out as this outlaw who's robbing trains and it is very much not somebody who is the type of guy who you think would be willing to risk everything to save some princess from China that he doesn't even know. But as the film progresses, you see more and more of his character, and you see him as somebody who actually does have a good in him, and in a way that feels natural. It doesn't feel like it's a forced thing, like I've seen in other stories where you have a guy who's supposed to be a good guy, or he starts out bad, and then he transitions and becomes a good character by the end of the film. Here, it actually feels like it's a natural progression for Roy. And the two, once they get together, are just a joy. They're just a blast to watch. And when it comes to their banter with each other, their back and forth, and their overall camaraderie. But the film also has a pretty intimidating, strong villain as well. I think uh, Lo Fong, I think, is legitimately a intimidating villain. I mean, he kills a guy with an oyster shell, which I didn't see coming, and I thought was honestly a pretty cool and badass way to kill somebody. You know, just suck out the oyster and then just slice somebody's throat with the shell. I was like, okay, that's pretty badass. And he holds his own throughout the story, throughout the film. It takes a lot to take this guy out. And the two writers did a good job in terms of building him up and making him feel like a formidable threat. There is another, there are some other side villains too that I think have some good work too when it comes to the writing. Uh, Calvin Andrews, who is a guy who works for Lo Fong, um, and Marshall Van Cleef, who's also another guy who works for um, Fong, and he's the marshal, and he's a corrupt marshal, and he's a bad cop, so to speak. You know, he's taking money on the side, and that character in particular, I felt had some good writing. And turned out to be a pretty good foe in his own right. And I also felt that it had a good mix of comedy and action. It didn't feel like something where there was too much comedy and the action felt like it was lacking, or there was so much action that the comedy felt out of place. I felt that there was a good balance of action and comedy in the script. And right from the beginning, it does. It draws you in with Chon Wang's story, and you feel for him. I mean, his uncle gets shot to death and senselessly by this member of Roy's gang named Wallace. I will admit, though, the stuff with Wallace afterwards felt like it wasn't as well done as it could have been. I think the two writers could have done a better job incorporating his character into the story because he felt like an afterthought. And it felt like a lot of the stuff that you think maybe he would have been doing was given to Van Cleef instead. And in all honesty, because of the fact that there is more of a direct connection between Wang and Wallace, because Wallace killed his uncle, you would think that maybe he would be the one that would be working for Lo Fong instead of Van Cleef. And I get why Van Cleef is there, but you could have him be there still as like somebody who's working for Fong, but he's like a mercenary. You know, he's a gun for hire, and he's the one that is mainly focusing on trying to take out Roy. But then you have Wang going up against Fong and Wallace, but instead, Wallace and the rest of what remains of Roy's gang just is gone for large portions of the plot. So I felt that that was definitely something that was a um, little disappointing because of the fact that he seemed like somebody who's going to be a pretty significant foe. And then even in the end, the way that he gets defeated is not satisfying at all. It's just a bunch of Native Americans show up on a roof, and he just surrenders and he gets arrested off screen. And for what he did to Wang, and he killed his uncle, you would think that there would be more of a confrontation between Wang and Wallace, where Wang would get the upper hand on him, but you don't really see that. Uh, Instead, you see that with Lo Fong, but with Lo Fong, like, what is really the connection other than he's a traitor and he is trying to hurt Pei Pei in the finale? Like, other than that, like, what is really the connection between him and Wang? There really isn't the same kind of connection between the two. But it did a better job when it comes to Roy and Van Cleef. Like Van Cleef, he was gonna get in a duel with Roy, but Wang wound up saving Roy because he was more than likely gonna die. And then Roy thinks that he's gonna be honorable in what in essence could be a rematch later on in the church, but he's a cheating scumbag, and so he tries to cheat his way to victory, but he's unsuccessful because somehow, by the grace of God, he misses all of his shots, and Roy hits his one shot right through Van Cleef's tin star on his chest. And that was definitely, in my opinion, a good payoff between those two. I will also admit there are some other things that are a little off to me. For instance, what's going on with the wife, the Native American wife of Wang's character? When Wang has that sequence when he gets into a fight with some Crow Native Americans, and then saves this other kid, and then he winds up getting high on a peace pipe, and then he sleeps with this young girl. Then she winds up becoming his wife, and then she shows up periodically, randomly throughout the movie at like the most opportune time to save Wang or to save Roy. And the first time that it happened, when she helps them break out of jail early on, that didn't feel like too much of a stretch. But then as it kept on going and she just kept showing up at the right spot every time, that was honestly a bit incredulous. And I would have rather have seen Roy and Wang find a way out of the situation themselves. The same thing goes for the showdown with the Wallace and Roy's gang at the end. Instead of having the Native Americans show up on the roof, have Roy and Wang find a way to defeat them themselves. Like, it just felt like there was it definitely felt like there was something lacking when it comes to those things. But other than that, I think for the most part, it's a really good script. I think the plot works, even though it is just another story about saving the princess. Ultimately, it turns into a story of the princess finding her own independence and deciding to stay in America to help other Chinese immigrants and to help them have a better way of life and go against the wishes of the imperial guards and the imperial rule. And I really like the friendship that forms between Roy and Wang. It's very well exemplified in this fun and hilarious scene when they play this drinking game together in the bathtub. And I love how at the beginning they're very much not friends, but there's still chemistry. And it just winds up becoming something that becomes a major strength of the story. These two, Roy and Wang, who are a very odd couple, and they wind up becoming a genuinely endearing and entertaining pair as the story progresses. And I like the fact that Wang does get the girl in the end. I like that Roy gets a girl too in what apparently is definitely no longer Wang's wife in the Native American girl. And I like that, Lo Fong gets defeated um, in honestly a pretty satisfying way. Gets hung with a bell, gets his bell rung in more ways than one. And I like the way that Van Cleef gets taken out. And I like a lot of the humor, a lot of the ways that it incorporates the different styles of fighting, whether it's Princess Pei or it's Wang or Lo Fong. I like that there's different varying styles of combat that are utilized, as well as whatever Roy can actually bring to the table when it comes to him being, crazy. You may know kung fu, but I know crazy. And there's also just some fun lines of dialogue from a multitude of different characters, mostly Wang and Roy. And there are definitely some moments where even though it is a lighter kind of story and film, it still feels like there's a bit of an edge to it. It's not all just cartoon violence and slapstick, which is really what Shanghai Nights ultimately became, which I think was to the detriment of the franchise, but that's just to me personally. But here I felt that there was still a little bit of an edge, despite the lighter tone, which I did appreciate. And it even was there when it comes to some of the comedy. I mean, there's a whole scene where Wang gets high. He gets high on pot. He had a little bit too much of the peace pipe, and it's honestly really funny. I wouldn't say that comedy-wise, this is like the funniest comedy you'll ever see, but there definitely are a handful of moments that'll provide some laughs or provide some chuckles. And when it comes to the action, it's definitely got a lot. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of martial arts, and it's very well done. It's got some good choreography, and I like the ingenuity behind the fight scenes. I love how Wang uses his wits and finds a way to uh, fight, but with things that you wouldn't necessarily think about in terms of a fight. Yeah, he uses his fists and his feet when he has to, when he doesn't have anything else around him. But there's other times where he'll use that, but he'll also use his surroundings, like when he's fighting the Crow Native Americans, the Crows. And he winds up using the trees and getting guys stuck in between trees and using that to his advantage. Or when he's fighting some of the Marshall's gang, or actually, it's not his gang, it's this other gang. And actually, no, I think it is Marshall's gang. And he's fighting these guys, and he's using a rope and a horseshoe. or when he gets in a bar fight later and he's using moose antlers that he pulled off the wall. I really liked that stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun and really cool to see when it comes to the ingenuity and the creativity of the action in the film. And I like how by the end of everything, Wang and Roy become lawmaker. You know, they become lawmakers. Like they become uh sheriffs essentially. You know, they become sheriffs and they uh now are entrusted with taking out the bad guys, you know, or finding the outlaws and dispensing justice. And you have these two guys who were initially outlaws and were wanted, and now they are working for the authorities, and their arcs have really concluded in a way that showcases that they're changed men. You know, they really have found um, a newfound purpose in their lives after this entire adventure. And it's just a film that definitely has a good overall vibe to it, and I think the script is definitely a big part of that. And it is a movie that, to me personally, I think is just a really nice mix of multiple different genres, and it's just an enjoyable, fun story with two main characters that you really connect with and really enjoy being around, and Wang and Roy. Now, the film also features, in my opinion, a really great cast. I mean, Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson, they have some genuinely great chemistry in this. The two make for a really fun pair. They work well with one another. They have a good rapport. Their banter, their back and forth, it just really works. Even though on paper you don't really think it would work at all, but it works very well between the two of them. Jackie Chan and his deadpan and his comic sensibilities, his physical comedy, his ability to be serious and to be a genuine a badass and kick ass, and then Owen Wilson and his sarcasm and his own charm, and it just all works very well. And Lucy Liu is also fine in this as Princess Pepe, but it's definitely one of the, I would say, one of her more forgettable roles because she spends most of the film just being the princess who's in distress. She fights a little bit near the end when she fights Lo Fong, but most of the time she's just, you know, the princess who has been kidnapped, is being taken hostage, and is just really not doing a whole lot and doesn't have a ton of dialogue either. And Lucy Liu has definitely had more memorable performances, if you ask me. Roger Yuan, though, I thought he did a really solid job as a villain. No Fong definitely was very capable when it comes to the martial arts, and in my opinion was a pretty intimidating presence. Walton Goggins, I like too as Wallace. I just wish he was in it more and had more to do. Xander Berkeley, honestly, his performance as Nathan Van Cleef is one of his best performances as an actor. He really had a lot of fun playing this scumbag marshal, and you could really tell. Like he really gave it his all with this one. He had a ton of passion for this role. And it was just a really entertaining, fun performance to watch as a result when it comes to him playing this just dastardly Marshall and Nathan Van Cleef. Uh, the rest of the cast is all right. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot to do though. I mean, Jason Connery was in it for only a little bit. Same thing goes for Rong Guang, who played Captain Yu of the Imperial Guards. Um, or Yuan Biao, who was a saloon fighter in an uncredited role. the main cast is pretty much Jackie Chan, Owen Wilson, Lucy Liu, Roger Yuan, Walter Goggins, Xander Berkeley. Um, I will also mention I gotta mention the actors who played the like his Indian wife, Brandon Merrill. She was also pretty efficient, pretty effective too, if you ask me. Um, she had some good moments as well. But really, it's Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson who are carrying the film, and they're the ones that get on the saddle and carry it, and they do a genuinely good job when it comes to being the focal point of this film. The cinematography by Dan Mindell, I didn't mind, and in all honesty, I thought he did a magnificent job for the most part. I thought this is a really nice looking film, and I think the cinematography was definitely a big part of that. And I think Richard Chew did really a good job as well when it comes to editing the movie, especially when it comes to the action in the film. And the music by Randy Edelman, I also thought was pretty decent. I wouldn't say it was one of my favorite scores from him, but I still think it matched the overall tone of the film well, and what the film was trying to do with the blend of different genres. But when it comes to music, it's the licensed music that I remember more, like Back in the Saddle Again by Aerosmith, and a handful of other songs that they used in the soundtrack, including a ZZ Top a track called Lagrange, which was used in Armageddon. And it's a film that had a budget of like $55 million, and you definitely do see it on the screen. The production design is top notch. So is the art direction, and there's as much practical stunt work and explosions and everything as possible. In fact, I think there are some miniatures that are used in the film as well. And it's like 110 minutes, but it goes by at a pretty quick pace because you got two leads that are very charming, very charismatic. You have a lot of action. There's barely a scene in this where you don't have at least a fight scene or some kind of shootout. And it's still got a very compelling plot. It's simple. It's about saving the princess and about two guys finding themselves along the way, but it's still something that works very well, and I think it's honestly one of the better buddy movies because of the chemistry of the two leads, and just honestly because of just how engaging and fun it is to watch all the way through. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Shanghai Noon. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.